I'm sure all of you are aware that My Hero Academia has finally ended, and with that has come a slew of different opinions saying it's good, bad, or subpar even. But I think that everyone can agree that MHA has been a great experience as each season passes. And with Season 7 in full throttle, it's showing little sign of slowing down its accrued momentum. And while I am looking forward to Season 8, the ending has many people questioning Horikoshi's writing. So, what happened? Well, anyone who has read more than one piece of fiction would know that all of these doubts are wrong. All of the TikTok readers are wrong. I'm right. Listen to me. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. I've watched more episodes of live action One Piece than the actual show, and I've seen all of Bleach minus the past 350 episodes, so I'm basically a shonen expert. Now, I've made a lot of videos talking about different aspects of my life with specific moments in shows, but today I'd like to talk about the bigger picture and how MHA's ending concludes the series with brevity and intelligence. I think there are a lot of reasons why the anime and the manga it's centered around have experienced the insane success they have already, and that success was only brought about with the substance that has come full circle. But before we do that, we're gonna need to go back to get a little insight to why I think the way I do about the series. Now, being an 8th grader who was passionate about writing and English literature, I've always known that this series was good. The character writing, the themes, the overarching story was enjoyable the whole way through. Over the past 8 years, it's been fun to watch these characters develop, having Horikoshi build so many personas brick by brick with a lot of depth to them, almost like real people. And I too feel as if I've grown with them, going from 8th grade now to a junior in college. My takes on the series are a bit unconventional, as I like to stay oblivious to the fandom, because there's the 2% of people like me, and then there's the other 98%. It's also the fact that I've read the whole manga and seen the series over 15 times. And after overanalyzing all of this, I feel as if I've marked a lot of the key moments that make the ending that Horikoshi chose one of the greats. And with that said, I'm just gonna get right into it starting from the beginning. My Hero Academia has always had one key theme that has stuck with me throughout the entire series, and that's its takes on defiance of the impossible. While most shonens have their typical MCs with their never give up mentality, Deku has this and more. From the start, Deku's dream is quite literally impossible. With no quirk, he runs around the city taking notes to be a hero one day. And from the current state of society, we know that Deku's living in a state of delusion. Despite this fact, he still lives in a world where society itself and the people around him are fighting his own dream. His childhood friend Katsuki Bakugo tells him to kill himself, his mom tells him he can't do it, and even his idol he's looked up to his entire life tells him to look into other careers. As any normal person would fall into a nihilistic mindset, Deku begins to fight it. He falls into existentialism, looking for answers in an answerless world. And this is just how reality is. No one is given a purpose, and we just find our goals and pursue them. Deku himself as a protagonist is far more relatable than some other shonen MCs, and I believe this is one of his more valuable bits in his character. A couple years ago, I wanted to go to the gym before I started lifting as I do now. I would just go in with my music, and as cringe as it sounds, I would pretend like I was training with All Might. And even though I never had someone in my corner showing me what to do or how to do any of this, I decided to go anyway, to find purpose, to try to be more than what I was. It was that shonen essence of the series that resulted in the catalyst that created a part of me today. Something as simple as Deku and All Might training together turned me into a shonen gym rat. And it's that odd pairing between Deku and All Might's relationship that keeps parallels running throughout the entire series. I'll get more into these later. But the jump into the fire mentality is what makes both Deku and All Might victims of true heroism. As All Might sees this in Deku, he decides to pass his power onto him, a sacred power passed down to each new wielder in order to stop All for One. And something I'd just like to point out really quick is the fact that One for All was born out of the first wielder's defiance. Again, drawing back to the parallels of defying the impossible. But this isn't the only instance we see this theme carried throughout the series. MHA's humble beginning and intro to Deku's character is just a testament how it comes full circle in the end. While seasons 2 through 5 are establishing side characters and watching them grow, season 6 has an introspective look at Deku's character and how he develops over time. Once Shigaraki lives up to the villain he sets out to be, a lot of responsibility of Hero Society falls upon Deku. This takes us to the Dark Hero arc. Something that's immediately noticeable is that Deku's enthusiastic voice has fallen. Season 6's Dark Hero arc is truly a nod to real life, as it sets us in the tone of an empty theme, losing passion for the thing we once loved. And as much as I would love to talk about its themes of growing up and encompassing passion, they're worthy of their own video in its own right. The point is that Deku's naive idea of heroism evolves into one of realism. Now, one might believe this to be an upgrade, but in actuality, this hinders Deku's mindset. At this point in the series, he's exactly like All Might in Season 1, believing the impossible to be impossible. There's a foil between Deku and All Might's character, as All Might gets the exact opposite treatment. All Might at the end of Season 6 has a run-in with anti-hero Stain of the series. All Might is forced into a self-analysis after seeing a rundown statue of him. Operating on so many negative emotions of self-hate, All Might can't see himself to be a hero anymore. Once a melancholic moment now filled with thrill and dread as All Might finds Stain's blade at his throat. At a total loss of identity, Stain tells him that you haven't been All Might ever since Kamino, and you never will be if you keep up this act. A true hero would fight to the end even without a quirk, something that has been deemed impossible from the series up until this point. This is a test to challenge the general ideas of heroism in MHA's superhuman society. As Deku's mindset recedes, All Might's grows into defiance of what shouldn't. We shouldn't be surprised at this, as both of them are molded and developed into heroes carried by One for All. Over time, the idea of being a naive, quirkless hero has faded in their minds. And now that All Might has been quirkless for quite some time now, he's grown to believe this mindset once again. But this isn't the only challenge of heroism we see Horikoshi push for towards the end of the series. As society turns into a moral gray area, so does the concept of being a hero as a profession. Aside from the series' take on what cancel culture would look like in that society, a proposal is made to hint at the fact that the only way to save a certain person is to kill them. And in this case, it's Shigaraki. Shigaraki acts as the ideal villain to the series, as not only the perfect embodiment of destruction and corruption, but also his very existence challenges Deku's ideals as a hero. Midoriya throughout the pre-war and the final war firmly believes that he can save Tenko, that a true hero would be able to save everyone in the end. Deku's expectations to live up to this name are completely crushed in chapter 418, where Shigaraki takes the perfect encapsulation of his character throughout the story. He ultimately has the same motivation as Deku, and even if he loses all hatred, he would still be motivated by the selfless act of the hero. This makes Shigaraki's character all the more complex and brings out the idea of heroism to a whole new concept, that heroism is uplifting for both sides of the coin, both heroes and villains alike. While there may be heroes, there also must be villains. Shigaraki, in a state of emotion, explains that villains also need a hero of their own, and that is himself. He truly is a dark reflection of Deku, even down to the corrupt society cheering Shigaraki on as their hero. Every villain can be a hero to someone, even if their actions are horrifying, and that's why Deku will have to kill Shigaraki, presenting the final challenge of the series as well as Deku's character. We see a defiance in logic as All Might ends up attaining one of the greatest feats in the verse. The fact that he's able to hold his own against one of the strongest villains, all for one, without a quirk. And this fight is truly a monument to the series of what it means to be a hero. I really don't know what other conclusions one can draw from this fight from reviewing it over and over again, besides the fact that a true hero would never stop fighting no matter what. All Might finds his value once again and realizes how much fun and important fighting and saving people are. That is the pinnacle of heroism and what he's always stood for ever since the beginning of the series. And while it is a bummer that All Might loses this fight, it's also done so in a way that wraps up Bakugo's final internal complex. It ends knowing that the era that All Might created will never die out and instead be carried by a future generation who will want to wield his legacy. Midoriya also takes his final stand and the heroes start to prevail. The final war comes to a satisfying conclusion as everyone paves the way for Deku to land his final smash, lighting the way for a brand new future. In the last moments of the series, it becomes clear of who and what this story was actually about. Deku and All Might. They themselves will always highlight the beautiful parts of heroism and why they will always prevail. Of course, we can point to examples of comic books, movies, the occasional good deed, or even the annals of literature outside of modern-day pop culture to say that there's something inherently beautiful and worthwhile of being a hero. But I believe MHA defines it best with its one consistent theme of self-sacrifice. There's an intrinsic drive in Deku at the beginning of the series to tell himself to move and throw himself into the fire no matter what. And although we see it in other works of fiction, it doesn't highlight it like My Hero does. And as the series progresses, we've seen Deku grow and develop in many different ways, except he remains static in this one trait. As the fight with Shigaraki comes to a close, we see a quirkless Deku run in once again, coming full circle. This is nothing short of a jaw-dropping conclusion with many different parallels. Deku changes the weather with his final punch, a level of power we see him look up to since the beginning of the series with All Might. The sun comes out once again with Shigaraki fading away. He tells Deku that he was never saved and kept fighting for what he wanted, as that's what a hero was to him. What follows after is the epilogue that wraps a bow onto a conclusion that I didn't feel needed more. It consists of a series of events that doesn't really need much more explanation. Yue gets repaired and society's been reformed. The Todoroki family is united, and Spinner writes the next Mind Comp, and the much needed and obvious moments for Deku and Uraraka. But the most controversial take of them all was Deku becoming a teacher. While people might think this was a shitty way to end the series, I couldn't disagree more. And it has to deal with, again, the parallels between Deku and All Might. If you look closely, we see that Deku quite literally took the same path as his idol. Starting out quirkless, became the greatest hero, losing his quirk, became a teacher at UA, and continued to fight quirkless. I think people were expecting the end to be more drawn out to show what everyone was up to after the final war. But My Hero Academia was always a story about how Deku became the greatest hero, and at least the outcome of him not being in contact with his classmates is realistic from a growing up standpoint. Most people inevitably go their own path, and it's hard to stay in contact with those you connected with once before. Despite it being a harsh reality, Deku is used to living this way, as that's how it was for a majority of his life. But Horikoshi still does this ending justice. Even with all the All Might parallels, I believe his profession out to be a perfect fit, as a big part of his character is intelligence and just general analyzing. Deku accepts that he's quirkless and wants to continue inspiring the next generation of heroes as he does with Dai. He continues to inspire just like All Might did when he started working at UA, but little did he know he would continue fighting like him quirkless as well. That theme of defiance of the impossible rolls around once again as All Might smashes the end card and tells Deku that he can keep being a hero. With all the funds that his classmates have been saving up, they're able to make a new model suit similar to the one that All Might had, so Deku could be in the field once again. This will allow Deku to be a hero alongside everyone else in Class 1A, turning a bittersweet ending into a happy one. So, where do we go from here? Well, it's clear that Horikoshi's writing can seem a little strange, as the type of story he was writing switched up at times. But the parallels, the insane character writing, and the foreshadowing proves that My Hero Academia was a story worth telling. A high of escapism into a dream that never should have happened to begin with, and the very laws of defiance that come with it. Is that something we should live by every day? To be able to ignore the feelings of I can't to dream something impossible? Well, I'd say it's worth a shot. Deku himself deserves to be one of the staples of heroism far more than some iconic deities of the superhero realm. And despite its deep-rooted themes of heroism and some of its darkest moments of the series, it still preaches messages like making people smile while doing something good for them, something that people should abide by to make the world a better place. I feel recently drawn to Deku's character as having a heart beating for others generates fulfilling days, ones where I find myself smiling more. All in all, it's a very satisfying conclusion to an already amazing overarching story. And although I would have preferred the final fight to end in a manner where Deku sacrifices himself to win, Horikoshi ended up doing this in his own way and expanding on it with its overarching themes. I believe that Horikoshi chose to end the series without showing too much of the recognition that Deku got, as a true hero doesn't need recognition. That we ourselves should be doing good on others just to do good, to spread kindness and be the light in someone else's life. And there's really nothing else I can say about these themes that would make the video any better. Normally I end off in a very different manner or leave an open discussion, but MHA is a very simple series with themes that are direct, which makes me kind of sad because I think 50% of people miss the whole point of the ending. But it indeed ended up being a great series, imbuing heartfelt themes overall, with solidifying Horikoshi as one of the greats in shonen manga. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll leave you with that and the Discord in the description. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I've come back from my hiatus and back in full throttle. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a great night.